Okay, welcome back. So this is the third video for today, the 23rd of April 2020. We're still working on um, bugs. So we've been dealing with two debugging problems. We already solved the first one in the previous video, and now we are looking at the second one, the second debugging challenge. And what you need to do uh, before you begin to try grappling with this problem is almost the same as what you did for the first debugging challenge. So you need to create a new file called debug2. Don't forget to include your name in there so that it's easy to find, to identify. Also, please remember to type in the right extension. And then remember that you had to download debugging problem 2. You need to open that on Atom. Once you've opened that, sorry, this is a mistake. You copy the contents of debugging problem 2 into your own file. Okay? So it's the same thing here. So for instance, this is my debugging problem. This is the source file. Okay, I control A, control C. So I select all and then I copy the entirety of the contents. I go back to debug to the file that I just created. Here as you can see, I already copy pasted it, but you can just go to the very first line and then hit Control V, so you paste what you copied from this file, debugging problem 2. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Then you save and then you're ready to go. Now, what is the problem here? You need to take a look at um, this file, open it on the browser. So select the file, right click on your mouse, or right click on your touchpad on your laptop or computer on your keyboard. Then copy full path, go to your browser, paste that in there, Control V, and then you will have this. So what can we see here? So we still have that same problem there with the picture, but you can totally ignore that. It seems that the H1 is fine. Um, this is fine. The H3s are fine. And the horizontal rule is fine as well. But what's the problem? Okay, so they're all fine. You see, they're the same as this is the first debug file. But what's the difference between this and the second one? It's the background color. So for some reason, the background color is not working here, even though this file is connected to the CSS file that we have that came along with the debugging files. So what's the problem here? What we can do is to pull up the developer tool again. Okay, so you have to be using Chrome, right click on the browser, click on inspect. What do we see here? So, so you go to the Elements tab and then select Body. Okay, Elements, and then I select Body there. And if I go over to the right-hand side to Styles, what do I see? I see that there are two things that are trying to influence the background color, as you can see there. Background color white and background color hex value. But this one is crossed out. So what's happening here? So we saw that there's CSS being applied. I mean, that's supposed to be applied to the web page. So there are, there are two CSS stylings that are being applied to the background color. One is white, and then one has this hex value. But then the external CSS, this, as you can see here, if we go back, you see that refers to the file that we've seen before. It's crossed out. So there's something wrong there. So the color that is in the external CSS is crossed out, and it's being overridden by the white color. But if you look at the code, it's actually what's giving you that white background color is an inline CSS. So if we go to DEBUG2, there you have it. There's a problem there. See, this is fine. The link tag that refers to our style, the CSS file that we're supposed to be using, that seems to be fine. But then there's a problem here. You see, because this, do you understand that this refers to a particular background color? If you look into that CSS file, you have a background color there, which corresponds perfectly to what we find here. Okay, and yet, if we go back to the HTML file, we see that there's another line that actually overrides what's contained here. Okay, so why is it that the inline CSS is being used over the external CSS? So which one of the two is more important? What we can do is to try to experiment. So what we're going to do now is to try to add a style tag. Remember that you have to place that within the head tag, okay? And then determine the background color. Well, let's just say, for instance, red. It doesn't really matter which color, it's just the color has to be different from the other two. One was white, and then the other one was a hex value, which was kind of grayish or, you know, faded purple, maybe. Okay, so we try to do that in the code, a style tag, and then a body color. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that. That's easier. That's faster. Let's put that here. Style tag. Okay. Just okay. Background color red. I'm going to save that. Now I just came from Atom, type that in, and I go now to the web page. I refreshed it. What do we have? What do we see here? 3 CSS styles. But what can we notice here? The new one, the red one, the red color that we just added with internal CSS. Remember this style within the style tag? It's also crossed out. So it's crossed out just as the hex value in the external CSS is crossed out. What's happening here? So the background color of the web page is still white. Yeah, we tried to look at this. They're all crossed out like this. Okay. So there are 3 colors being applied, but only one is actually working. So you have an external CSS that's using a hex value. Inline CSS says it's white. That's the one that's working. Okay, and internal CSS. Sorry, that says red. Okay, that's the one within the style tag. Okay, So notice that the line number is actually given by the developer tool. So you have them here. So that actually tells you where to find these things in your files. Okay, you see the HTML file there, and then the line, the same here, CSS file, and then the line. So it's easy for you if you just look at the code, you can find what's going on, which line of code is actually being applied. Okay, what if you try to untick the white color background on the developer tool? What's going to happen? Actually, what happens is that, if you untick that, it's as though you're erasing that from the code. Okay, so we can try to do that. Untick it. You see, once you untick it, it moves on to the next one. So this was the internal CSS, remember? Okay, so unticking this, actually, it's almost equivalent to erasing that from the line of code. But just remember that by doing this, you're not actually changing anything in the code. So it just, you know, it just shows you what happens once you play around with these different elements on the browser, but it doesn't actually affect your code. But it's a good way to test what you have in your code. Okay, so we untick that, and then it moved on to this. Imagine unticking this. As you can see, it moves on to the hex value. Okay, so like I said, if you it's like if you untick an element there, it's like deleting it. So we did this until we got to the hex value. The browser goes, in the end, it went to the hex value when we untick those elements. As you can see, once you tick it again, the other ones are crossed out once more. What does this show us? Like I said, Chrome allows you to play around with the appearance on the web page, but it doesn't really. If you're doing this on the the developer tool, it doesn't really change your code. Okay, just to be clear. So what did we learn here? So we had different types of CSS applied to the very same web page: inline, internal, external. They were affecting the same property of the same element, but the priority that we saw was like this. The hierarchy was like this. Okay, first the inline element, then the internal CSS, then the external. So you can say, whatever is more within the code, you might say that has the priority. So this describes the hierarchy of the three different ways of applying CSS. But what this actually means is that you can apply global styling to all of your web pages. So you can set those in your external CSS file, but then in the individual web pages, you can apply specific changes or one-off changes to specific elements in the code for that particular web page. But be very clear, it remains recommendable to apply all your styles in your external CSS. Okay, have that, use the external CSS, and then you can add individual changes using inline or internal CSS. Okay, I hope that's clear. If you have questions, you can ask me in the chat. Okay.